Hey everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of the Inchstones podcast. All of May was focusing and continues to focus on mothers and caregivers around Mother's Day, and June follows wonderfully. And I'm thrilled here to focus on the dads in June. And I have Tommy from Spectrum and Camouflage, Autism Dad. Like many of the fellow autism parents that share vulnerably online, Tommy is no different. There is a passion in sharing the reality through being extra vulnerable about what the truth is about being an autism parent. And I'm thrilled to have him here today. Tommy, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here and just excited to be able to share.
You describe yourself online first and foremost as a dad. How did becoming the father to an autistic child really change the way you understood what strength, success, like what really actually matters in life? How did becoming a dad like that?
Wow. Yeah. So we had wanted to have children for a long time, and it was something that we knew we wanted as soon as we were married. And it wasn't something that came right off the rip for us. There was a lot of just question, even if we were going to have children for a while. So then when it came, the ultimate win, and, for a dad to see that you're having a boy is, so your firstborn, you've got your son to carry on the name, all those typical, men things right off the bat, right? And when Wyatt came along, he was just an absolute gem. Everybody wanted to hold him. He was sweet, he was cute, eye contact, all everything that you would expect. He explored, he just laughed. He had an infectious little laugh. And so life started out exactly how we had wanted, just in God's time. So we got through that portion. And when I say God's time, I think at that point, for me, it was not really realizing what all that actually meant. It was more just like, okay, this is happening, what's supposed to happen. For me, fatherhood was it was what you naturally do, right? And we run a company as well. It's a construction company, and that was where most of my focus was this growth process. I'm a second generation. My dad started the company back in the 80s, and I was starting to take over, and we were growing. And when COVID hit, everything just went to heck in a handbasket, and along with my mental health.
Yeah.
And and there was a variety of things, but Wyatt was starting to kind of dip off at that point. And so when you say, what fatherhood really meant to me was strength, well, it actually brought me to my knees, because I thought I was a relatively strong person. You build a company, you're successful, quote unquote, in the societal way. Was uh, I was the guy that didn't really get shook, but through some loss in that time period, and then seeing my son start to regress, uh, my wife dealing with all these emotions, all this, we had our second child that we didn't think it was going to happen so fast, but then we've got this second child, and she worked at work with me. She was a big portion of the company for a while, and she decided to then go home, stay home with the kids, which was a blessing. But for me, it was my mental health was straining, and obviously I'm always going to advocate for autism.
Mm-hmm.
For me, a lot of my focus has started to turn more towards the adults, because I know what darkness looks like. I've gone through several really dark times, and I just know how important that is. And so for me, my wife had actually told me to go on a hunting trip, and that went against everything that I had felt like I should, as a father, I should be there. I need to just have my stuff
Mm-hmm.
together. But at that point, I was actually just afraid to be 30 minutes away from home, because my anxiety and my stress level was so high. Short story, I went on this trip, got a call from my wife, that they thought my son was having seizures at school. We really realized this dip was actually happening. The things that we just kept saying, he'll grow out of it. And I had a really long conversation with God on a mountaintop that day. And not only my spirituality, but my fatherhood just changed immediately. And the strength that you think you have is actually just this fictitious thought that I'll get through something. And until you have this, for me again, and I hope it's okay that I'm talking about my faith. I guess I
Absolutely.
didn't. Okay. For me, it was where the wave broke on the rocks.
That's right.
This moment that I had absolutely no control. I had no idea where I even was, and so it was the first moment I realized that I wasn't just living for myself, and that I had to live forever for my son. And when I think that realization hits you, especially as a man, and you're obviously like naturally like, moms are naturally nurturers and caregivers. Men are fixers and providers. And when you realize that you can't fix something, like that is a breaking point. And so what my son and this diagnosis, and he'll be 11 this month.
Mhm.
He lost all his words from 2.5 to his last word. We finally lost around 4 was when the last time he said anything. And I'm trying to find the right words when you talk about like parenthood and strength. It's this thing that then you just decide that this is my cup and I'm thankful for it. I'm grateful for everything that he is and everything that we're going to be, but it's just constantly trying to figure out how to pivot and not, there's no turnaround, there's no start over. So that for me, I guess if that makes any sense, is a nutshell of what this has done for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so much in there that we can jump off of. What I term I use is like reorientation, like having children. And I have an 11-year-old Millie, and then my son Mac is 8. Same diagnosis, wildly different presentation. And I always talk about you have a girl with autism, non-speaking autism, and full body apraxia, and you got a son non-speaking autism and full body apraxia. You learn really quickly how much primal behavior is in there because they are literally the same. They have the same exact diagnosis, and the presentation of that, you can't help but see the illumination of men and women, like boys and girls.
Yeah. Okay.
It's because there's so many typical boy things that he does that is not autism, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many things. I mean, my daughter is, yes, she needs full-time care, but she is so much more manageable and so much more docile and so much more able to like kind of move through the world with her mom by her side as a feminine example. My son does not follow suit like that, and I don't believe that that's his autism. I think that that is him just being a boy. Um, and what else I wanted to talk about is that reorientation piece is that the constant reframing and reorienting to reality is one of the greatest gifts. And I always say that these kids did not happen to me, they happened for me. And it broke me to a point where I was getting, and I continue to get, to reorient to the truth and reality of life. Even in the trenches of what I consider the frontline combat of humanhood and motherhood, the way in which you speak about that, like you said, the wave and the crash of the shoreline is what I don't think that people realize happens to you and for you and can become the way in which you're planted to become the best version of who you were meant to be, Tommy, and who I was meant to be, Sarah.
It's so nice to hear someone like pretty much explain, your feelings and your story, and that shows how many people are in the same boat, right? And that's where, my podcast, and I know your podcast, it's just to get to the people that feel this and don't know how to explain it, and like they're crazy and they just don't know how to articulate these feelings because like you said, it's not happening to me, it happened for me. And I've said so many times that my son saved my life.
Yes.
I
Yes.
without this diagnosis, the success that I have found, the people that I have met, the opportunities that have been provided for me, I'm confident had this not showed up in my life, I would probably be a dirtbag. But just because it's so worldly felt, right?
Things the things that we have created like altars of in typical,
Yes.
let's say, America. We have built altars on things. And when you are stripped down to this and you realize that humans and other in relationships and being a mother or being a father is literally the most, I'm getting choked up here. I don't get choked up on my own podcast, Tommy, is the most luxurious gift. And to be able to have the capacity to speak to it is why I believe this community and why the goodness of social media ends up bringing these stories together, because foundationally, being broken to this capacity, the stories that the world tells is that you are now obsolete. You are erased, and you are so pushed to the ends of normalcy that oftentimes it becomes an erasure of that reality, because the reality is so powerful and is so truthful. The rest of the world can't handle it because the things that have built up can't hold that. They can't hold that truth.
No, it can't. And that's a hard breaking point. And it's still a struggle because then you turn to I need to provide enough to make sure that this goes on long enough for, the ultimate thing that every parent deals with is, what happens when I'm gone. But,
That's right.
when it comes to the statement, "This hasn't happened to me, this has happened for me," that's been something that I wanna just real quick dive into one specific verse that has allowed me a lot of peace inside of this, and it is, and I can't do it perfectly, so but it's where the disciples ask Jesus about the blind man. Who sinned, the Father or the Son? And he said, "Neither, for this has happened to bring glory to the Father." So when we start questioning why, well,
Mhm.
it just happened so that we could find ways to glorify God, and that's something that has brought me peace inside of this because I would give anything. I've said, in my last podcast with Tyler, I know that I said I'd give my legs, I'd give my life to hear my son say, "I love you" again.
That's right.
But in reality's sake, we do live in the now, and I was just reading this morning in John, and it was kind of a moment of just another realization where Christ is talking about, may the Lord protect you, not from the world. He doesn't say, protect you from death, protect you from persecution. He protect you from the evil one.
Mhm. That's right.
And it is just in all of this stuff is like, is this the protection that I needed in my life to actually bring me to my knees? Because for me, I couldn't do anything. I mean, in this world, I've proven that I can do what I need to do. But to my salvation and my family's salvation was this, I don't know. I just know that I can bring glory to God through this. And that one verse, the didn't happen to me, it happened for me, is what's brought me
It's
peace and
that
sharing. And
illuminates it. That illuminates that verse. I too, I'm a Christian. I'm a devout Catholic. Kobe Bryant is a very much a powerful person in my life when it comes to that kind of faith-based practitioner in life. He famously said in some interview, someone asked him about this, and this talks to what you're saying about this is about giving it to God. Why do you play? And do you play to love because you love to win or that you hate to lose? And he said he always played to figure out things and learn who he
mm,
is. And I think
mhm,
that is a hairline truth that the majority of this world um, cannot understand and place that as the reason that we are here. You can take the greatest leader in this world, and if they are constantly orienting to try to hate to lose or to not lose or to only win, that is going to become detrimental to them becoming the best version of themselves. And I think what I hear you saying is that your child and my children, it actually stripped those away because you realize this is not about winning or losing. It's literally about staying in the game long enough to learn who you are, to get to the root cause of what it means to be a human and woman. I don't think I've ever or would ever, and I'd love to hear your wife's take. I'm sure she'd agree. I have never sat more deeply in my feminine than when I became a mother to two children with profound autism. And I think
I'm
that
sure.
there's a
Yeah.
divinity in that, because the nurturing and the caregiving aspect I have a typical 13-year-old daughter as well. There's no
Okay.
way that I was at all doing the intense level of my most divine feminine mothering with
Yeah.
her. I thought I
Well,
was. I thought I was. I
y
thought I was really present. I thought I was loving those little classes in New York City, and I was the attentive mom to music classes. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong.
and it's such an innocent wrong, and I think it
Yeah.
does show, like you said, that hairline, these things that we dance with because, like, me and my wife will talk about, like because we never wanna be the people that doesn't want to hear your normal problem, right? And, like, we've literally
Mhm.
had people say, "Well, we don't wanna tell you," like, "We're not trying to
Yeah,
complain
oh,
because we know
yes,
you have
yeah.
so much." And it's like, "No, no, 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 no." But when we have to catch ourselves saying, like, if we could just complain about going to basketball practice, if we could just complain about if those were our complaints. But the thing is if those were our complaints, we wouldn't know.
We
And
wouldn't know.
so when your eyes are open to this thing and and I think people can misconstrue that, like, especially I think there has been a very large awakening in the awareness, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. And obviously there's sides to this. There's some sides I don't agree with.
Me
I'm always going to, but it's like, if we can all just agree that we want our kids to live optimal, then I think that we can put all the other stuff aside for the most part. But like your podcast, and I like the name, the inches. I love that because you go from this societal way of, like you said, just the mom that's present, clapping for the music, like
Mhm.
these things, these achievements that naturally come for so many people. But like for us, when my son first got on a scooter at 7, 8 years old, like that was such a monumental achievement. And people do,
Even contemplating being on the scooter, right?
yeah. Yes, yes. And and the thing is the amount of grace and mercy that you have to develop inside of this, or it turns to hate and dismay and disgust and disdain, and that's that's not who I was built to be. The mercy and grace that you have to find inside of this because people don't know what they don't know, and so I try to speak as loudly and respectful for the outside community as much as for the inside, and speak for like like listen, yeah, because we've had a lot of struggles. Family members trying to understand and what are they
Mhm.
walking along or are they not? And like friends, it's there's so many layers to this. And I love the name. Like I said, I wanted to take a second to just, encourage you on that because it is just like the inches that just matter more than the football fields.
It does.
So anyways, no,
No,
I
I
just,
appreciate that. I think I talk a lot about on Inchstones here that there is an unconscious societal conditioning in the modern world, modern America, right? The global village of online social media. And I'm a geriatric millennial. I turned 43 this month. And so
okay.
I grew up in the 90s and what we thought was just going to happen because we were just, got a college degree and moved to New York City and, you know, all these things that you just think are going to naturally happen. The story that we had been sold and we didn't even realize we were that we were integrating so deeply into our identity was that all these things had to happen or I would fail, right? Or I was a
Mhm.
failure. And I think that the realizing that for me and realizing that I was so hell-bent and had such a chokehold on what I had to have my life and motherhood look like was scary to me in a stripped down way because who was I if I wasn't the mom who lived on 72nd in Columbus and was going to Central Park Zoo and was dining out because my full-time like all these things that I had just assumed were absolutely had to happen that when they didn't my identity was completely stripped. And again, what a gift. Like, what a gift that was. But that conditioning, I think that the majority or typical fellow parents don't even realize how much of a chokehold they have on that identity. That wasn't even there. They didn't even choose it. They just
Mhm.
happened to it just happened to them because we are so unaware of what's around us and how it's programming us to believe what is why do we think it's supposed to happen? And then having children that don't develop typically, inchstones for me came, I knew my children were developing. I watched it. They were not developing. They just weren't developing on any sort of normal trajectory
Mhm.
or XY axis that the world was telling me they should. And I thought, should what?
Mm.
Yeah, does the world say that my 11-year-old should be fully potty trained and going off to camp with her sister this summer? Absolutely. But are we getting there? Are we making strides? Yeah. Like massive ones, but they're not on a trajectory or a line that anyone in this world in my community and outside of it would think is successful.
And that's what's hard because from the beginning of time, people have wanted to set the boundaries. People have wanted to set the expectations. And listen, I still hold, and I guarantee you still hold your children to expectations. It's then just being able to understand what the reality is.
Mhm.
And a book that my wife just picked up, and I was recommended last year, and I don't necessarily align with everything, but one of my mentors here the other day, I had said something similar to him. Like, so I don't align with everything, and he said this, and I've never heard this, and I'm gonna share it as much as possible. But he said, "Eat the fish, spit out the bone. Eat the fish, spit out the bone." And I'm just
Hmm.
like, I love that because you don't have to align with every little piece of it. And anyway, it's a book called "Loving What Is" by Byron Katie.
Mm.
And it has just helped me be able to understand a little bit more of just stripped down reality, right?
Yes.
It is just, you think that I should agree with you. Why would you think that? You don't know me. You don't know my thoughts. So why would you think that I should agree? And it's like a lot of it's four questions. And it's just a really interesting book. My wife just picked it up and I've recommended it to her for a while because we're just constantly trying to work through these and
Mhm.
separate what societal
Yes.
thoughts and expectations are and what reality is. And as long and even so, like if Wyatt hits a spot that is it. That is the point that is his pinnacle. Well, then we got him there.
Yes.
We
And
got
a
him there.
and we got to witness him getting there.
Yeah.
That's one of my
Yep.
things. It's interesting. I had this wonderful class. my favorite classes in college, years before I became a mom, was on nonverbal communication. I was
Mm.
obsessed with the class. I was like, I know things like this. There's some sort of intuitive nature. I love people watching and without even speaking to people. And now getting to have children who literally do not use their voice box, cannot use their voice box, do not have the oral motor planning to use their voice. I get to literally live inside the subject that I think is fascinating because I see the love, I see their development, I see how they connect without saying a word. And that to me speaks to what you're saying is like, this is not about meeting someone else's expectations on it. Because I know that whose expectations am I meeting? God's expectations. I am so aligned with seeing things from a different perspective and to realize that communication is not just words. It is an embodiment of the spirit. And as a mother, there is no greater joy than being able to harness that and being the one to receive it.
Yes.
It
And
doesn't take away the heart, to your point. There's a real polarity in that.
there is, and that is just trying to a constant, not, I don't even want to say struggle. It's just a duty to separate the struggle and the joy, because I've spent a lot of time talking about what's autism and what's a 10-year-old boy.
Yes,
So,
yes.
like to original something you'd said. Gosh, I just had something I want to throw, but it'll come back to me. But just being able to separate, yeah, those realities and well, it was about society and their expectation. And this is something else that I was just spoke in Puerto Rico at a conference, and one of the speakers after me, he went on about your own perception about yourself.
Mm.
And it was when he really realized that people weren't thinking about him. Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
goes around and speaks with Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins was talking to him the one day, and he was just like, out of everyone in the world, who do you know is thinking about you right now? And he starts going through these, and he's just like, and he's like, no, probably not. No, probably not. And he's like, your mother. And he's like, I sat there and just melded, realizing that I don't think my mom's probably thinking about me right now. So when we look at ourselves and the expectations that society, who has this they wouldn't think about my son if he was, they honestly, if he was doing better than their kids, they'd like him even less, because there's
Exactly.
such this growth. So it's like they're not thinking about him if he's doing well, they're not thinking about it if he's doing poorly. So why are we thinking about the things that they should be thinking about? It's about what we are doing as parents to the best of our abilities, and what our children know is love. So if we're showing them love and walking through them with this progression, even if it is a game of inches, then we're doing our job. So
Yeah.
if we can separate the fact that they're not thinking about us anyway, so why are we thinking about them? It can really settle down the world around us quite quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I love, I'm not sure if you know this man is, and I studied PR in college, but Marshall McLuhan, he's known as like the grandfather of PR. Okay. And like how the world sort of takes in information, and his biggest, I guess, like theory is called the medium is the message, right? So the medium, the global medium we are in, we take in so much. We are holding so much stories and so many lives and so many narratives, more than any other um, chunk of humans in history, right? And our bodies are not meant to carry all that weight and all the stories and have those constantly come into us. We are meant to learn from others, like primally wired. Like our communities, throughout history, years and hundreds and thousands of years ago, were like these small communities, right? 75, 100 people, everyone's sort of supporting each other. Now we have all this, what could be considered testimony and witness in some ways, but it's on such a scale that it can be disorienting to those of us that need to stay so present in the moment. And I think that speaks to your point so well, is that we get to silence the heaviness and what we're carrying. And I think it's dutiful, as you said, is both deeply, like, I guess, yeah, heavy, but also deeply reprioritizes the signal from the noise. And I think that what you're saying, illuminates that, because we have to be able to realize that no one is thinking about us. Also, no one's coming to save us either. And that becomes this most powerful, like, invisible thread that weaves in my life, and it keeps me so present to my children. And isn't that what every theology and religion in this world preaches? The power of now and the power of the present
Hmm.
moment. and not having fear over the future or fear that the past or worry or regret. My children, I mean, there's no, I cannot think of another way or a human that has pulled me more into the power of now than my children have.
And I would have to agree with that because even with my daughter or my nieces and nephews,
Yeah,
because, Wyatt needs a lot of care and supervision and he wants us to be there with him a lot of times. What has happened over the years is me and my wife have spent a lot of time in the basement playing with kids or out in the
totally,
yard playing with kids.
totally.
So I know that I can look back. Now my daughter, she is starting to grow some wings here and she just so I've saying me and my wife are saying Jesus love yous to the kids probably every night since they were born while I'm, whenever I'm around. And she just recently said, Dad, I think I'm good on that. It's like,
No, you're breaking my heart.
yeah, it's like, oh my goodness. But, even so, I can look back and I can say, even when I feel like I've fallen short, I can look back and say, no, you were there more than many. Just almost, I hate to say default, but it was just you just knew you had to be there. And by default, you got to hang out with all these other kids and make memories with all the other kids and essentially be the fun uncle, fun aunt because Wyatt needed you there. So it's like, well, the saying, if you can't beat
Yeah,
them, join them.
exactly.
So, there's a lot of blessings
Yeah,
inside of it, and again, hardship. There's still straight up like the podcast that came out today with me and my wife, we talk about some of those deep fears and some of the future thoughts and some of we want some of the things you see that then bring you back into that and just how to get out of it, how to live in the now, because, one of my good friends, he runs a nonprofit down in Louisiana, and his main statement is, "Live where your boots are."
yeah,
And it is just like you said, everyone talks about the moment, and then unfortunately in America's society, what we see a lot of are these old timers that say, "What I wouldn't have done to do this," or "I'd go back to the glory days," or, the
right,
songs that,
right.
"The boys are back in town," all these things that and I saw this one guy talking about it, and he's like, "Who is here to tell you that the good old days might be the days you're living right now?"
Totally, without a doubt.
And this is what's made me really try to slow down, not stop life, we still try to live and make sure that we're doing but this could be the best time of my life. At my son, maybe 11 years old, this could be the absolute best time of my life. And so my encouragement, yeah, is to adults is to breathe and look for the little joys, look for the inches of progression and be grateful and thankful for those things.
Yeah, it's, again, I never in a million years had profound autism on my bingo card, let alone twice. And I think that, having a typical developing child and who's 13 and it's probably similar what your daughter's trajectory is, she's completely self-sufficient. If I told her to get to the Philippines by this afternoon, she probably could do it. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like she
Yeah.
probably could, right? Like actually bet my bottom dollar on that. But because of that, and I think getting to experience parenthood on two different ends again is such a gift. I get to see what it's like, and you and your wife get to experience what it's like to parent a typically developing child. And anytime something typical happens, a 13-year-old girl as a stud athlete on a basketball team and living in central Jersey and starts to realize that she's testing the nest a little bit, right? She's pushing the boundaries, and everyone around me is moms are freaking out and going, this is really stressful and like these girls and whatever. I think, yeah, they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to do that. There's what are we? There we knew this was happening. We knew
Yeah.
this was coming, right?
What you're looking for.
So it's like, yeah, how great is it that we get to watch these girls start to grow some wings and to realize that they have a voice and they have agency. Something you were talking about with your episode with your wife that I wanted to touch base on. I interviewed a woman, fellow autism mom, talks a lot about regulation, like the nervous system regulation for herself as parents and caregivers. And I think what we're doing actually in this episode as a byproduct is this. She talks about naming it to tame it. Like you name what's going on, and just by naming it, you sort of contain that emotion and then you move through it. And I think that's such a powerful thing amongst this community is just by saying it's a struggle sort of dissipates the struggle, right? Yeah, this is really hard. Just saying that, there's something psychological in that. You then go, yeah, it is. Let's keep moving, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's nothing else to do. When you sit in it, in silence, something, it'll grow. And what you focus on grows. And
That's
and
right.
so like if you can get it out, the power of the pen, writing things down and
Hmm.
having these conversations, the release of just acknowledgement. And it doesn't, like I tell people all the time, I'm not asking for a hug. I'm
No,
not asking for your sympathy. I'm just trying to create awareness and speak for those who don't have a voice. My son is quite capable of many things, and there I see a lot of progression since we've been dealing with chiropractic stuff that we've been dealing. Have you ever looked into Dr. Tony's stuff?
I have not. No, not specifically.
Yeah, just check his podcast out one time. It
Yeah,
just might be something you'd be interested in.
definitely.
The Experience Miracles podcast. We found him when he had like 4 episodes, and it's like from where we started with their program to where Wyatt is now, there's and so much growth still to come. So, and it's nervous system stuff. And it all revolves around the vagus nerve and the regulation, like you were just talking about the nervous system stuff. So, and me and my wife have been using them as well. And just the alignment that we have been able to find as parents and keeping our nervous system regulated inside of these things have helped a lot. So anyways, yes, no, so many different layers to this, and trying to figure out where to go can be overwhelming. But once you speak it out, what is the immediate threat? That's something that I've really focused on, right now. What is the immediate threat? And if there is not an immediate threat, again, let's settle down. So we spoke it out. We talked about the potential. Now we're going to settle back into now. The reality is still everybody is in place. We have everybody accounted for. They're fed, they're clothed, they're in bed. They might sleep some. And then we go from there.
We could have a 3-hour Joe Rogan length conversation here, but I am going to just wrap this
Yep.
up here. And just, I am
Yep.
so grateful for this type of communication. And, what I appreciate most is, like you said at the beginning, honesty without losing hope, speaking about autism and your fatherhood, your marriage, and really mental health, especially this is May is Mental Health Awareness Month too, and caregiving and alignment with mental health that feels grounded in what this real life, unpolished, and deeply non-performative way, I feel is the most radical way to be human. Thank you for the work that you're doing and your wife is doing. And I think so many parents, especially dads, are going to feel less alone because of how you show up in this community. So, Tommy from
Thank you.
Spectrum and Camouflage, thank you so much for being here on the Inchstones podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, and please keep up the work that you're doing. It's an honor to be here, and I just hope everybody well.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, until next time here on the Inchstones podcast.